In 1976, you had Paramount's remake of King Kong, as well as Universal's own attempts at trying to get their own remake of King Kong off the ground. As we all know, the 1976 King Kong remake by Paramount, produced by Dino De Laurentis and directed by John Guillermin, is the only one that really came to be. Now, around the same time, though, there were actually a couple other attempts to try to do something Kong related and get in on the Kong craze. Now, one of them actually was an attempt to do a King Kong kind of movie. It really didn't have that much relation to King Kong other than having Kong in the title, and that film is Baby Kong. And that was a version of the King Kong mythos, which really was in essence a ripoff, which was going to be directed by Mario Bava. And Mario Bava is well known for doing a lot of Italian horror films. And this film, Baby Kong, it was probably one of the few that got close to being made, because there was a poster that was actually drawn up. There were storyboards that were drawn up as well by artists. There was a little scenario that was written, kind of like a spec script, so to speak. And there was even attempts by effects guys to try to work out, like, okay, what are we going to do in terms of the effects? And it was going to be shot in Ponza, Italy, and then for some reason everything fell through. I'm guessing it was legal reasons, because Dino De Laurentiis' Kong came out through Paramount, and then all plans to do Baby Kong were just dropped. And knowing how Sue happy Dino was, I could see that's probably why it was dropped. Although it would have been crazy to see, and it probably would have been awful. But honestly, I can't lie and say I would not have been curious to see what Mario Bava's version or vision of a King Kong film might have been, even if it was just going to be a King Kong ripoff. It still would have been interesting to see. Now, he wasn't the only one that announced his intentions on doing a Kong film around the same time as Dino and Universal. There was also Roger Corman, the king of the B-movies himself. He threw his hat into the ring, and he announced he was going to do his version of King Kong, but it never really got any farther than that. It was just Roger Corman blabbing to the press saying, yeah, I'm going to do a King Kong movie too, and then nothing ever happened. So there's not much to say about that. Now, I'm cracking up at this because I just can't. Dino De Laurentiis is a real character. He is a total character. And I'm cracking up because you'll hear why I'm having a hard time taking this stuff seriously. At the same time that his remake of King Kong was being created and it was being worked on, and the finishing touches were being put on it, he was already speaking to the press, already just mouthing off to anyone who would hear and saying stuff that was just crazy about other Kong films he wanted to do. So he was actually trying to get a sequel to the remake going around the same time that the remake was shooting, because the remake was costing an incredible amount of money at the time. So Dino had this idea of, well, I'll do a sequel called King Kong in Africa, and that way I can recoup some of the costs from the remake. And he asked a screenwriter named Joanna Crawford to write a treatment, but he only gave her like 3 days. So she ended up coming up with a scenario involving gypsies, Russian submarines, and helicopters. He wanted to shoot the sequel to the remake as soon as July of 1976. But no script was ever really completed. The only thing that really came out of it was a little discussion between Lorenzo Semple Jr., the screenwriter of the Kong remake, and Crawford. And they had this idea of some kind of like Frankenstein mythos like sort of concept where Kong is resurrected by some mad doctor or something, and then he's being led astray by a group of ill-intentioned people. Sorry. I had ill intentions there. My mouth could not fucking move properly. That's about as far as that got. But despite that, De Laurentis was still trying to get this sequel thing going. He tried to convince Jeff Bridges and Charles Grodin to take the starring roles in the film. Jessica Lange said no, because she made it clear that in a press conference that she did not see any interest and was not interested at all of appearing in the sequel. And De Laurentis apparently joked to Lorenzo Semple to write a scene where Dawn, after reuniting with Kong, who's brought back to life, all of a sudden has Kong bite her hand off. Just like, this shit is fucking insane. This shit is insane in the membrane. I mean, and I heard that this is stuff I got from a French website, and it was like a message board. I don't know how much of this is true. This could be all made up bullshit. But knowing how crazy of a character Dino De Laurentis is, it doesn't sound that far-fetched. It really doesn't. Now, that didn't work out too well, of course. I'll have Kong bite your hand off. Joanna Crawford then wanted to write another story, another Kong sequel titled Daughter of King Kong, and make it kind of a feminist treatment of the myth. But Dino did not see any money in the project. Even back then, people didn't see a lot of money in a feminist King Kong movie. If they made that movie today, it would also bomb. There's no money in that kind of thing. Regardless of how big something like Wonder Woman is, if you made Wonder Woman explicitly, blatantly feminist, it probably would not have done as well. So you would think, okay, the crazy talk would stop there, but no, it continues. It continues. Because even before King Kong Lives ended up being shot, Dino was absolutely obsessed with bringing another Kong film to the screen. After the success of Orca, another monster movie that he produced, he wanted to do a film where King Kong fought Orca. King Kong versus Orca. Can you imagine that shit? King Kong versus Orca? Like, how would that even work? I mean, yeah, Orca's a killer whale, but it's a regular-sized killer whale. What is he going to have Orca get supersized? But then, like, what kind of match would that be? Orca can't fight on land. What is Kong going to fight in the sea? I mean, the whole concept is just stupid. Like, there's just no way that would even work. And just when you think it couldn't get any dumber, then Dino saw the $6 Million Man television show, and he saw the success of that as well as the success of the Bionic Woman, and he all of a sudden the light bulbs popped in his head, and he was like, "Oh, Bionic Kong!" It's just like, holy fucking shit, Dino! Stop smoking the crack, for fuck's sake, man. Crack is whack. It really is. Crack is whack. But he just could not stop smoking that shit, because he had other ideas for sequels to King Kong Lives. I mean, not King Kong Lives. Well, he did, actually, as well. But he had other ideas for a sequel to King Kong before it became King Kong Lives. Actually, I forgot one. Yeah, one of them just more crack-fueled, inspired concepts by Dino De Laurentis here. His other concept he had in mind for King Kong 2 before King Kong Lives was King Kong in Moscow. And he said he already had John Gillerman attached as the director of the film, and it was King Kong in Moscow. Just I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. I really couldn't. And it could all be bunk. It could all be total bullshit. But I would not be surprised at all if it is true. Now, one of the eventual co-screenwriters of King Kong Lives, Ronald Shusett, he came up with his own wild ideas about a sequel to King Kong Lives. During the production of the film, Shusett came up with an idea for a sequel to King Kong Lives featuring Baby Kong. Now, this is another thing I don't know whether or not it's true or not. It's coming from a kind of iffy source, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it's an inane idea that, I mean, was Shusett smoking the same crack that Dino was? I mean, what is this? So his idea is that King Kong Lives 2 will start with the film. The film will start with Kong's son, Baby Kong, as a teenager. And this teen Kong, this Baby Kong, has a pretty bad Achilles heel. He's afraid of heights. So he said, Shusett then says, according to this blog, he said he must climb the Eiffel Tower in the climax of the film to save a 14-year-old girl he fell in love with. Bestiality? No. 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 Because she was taken by terrorists and held in a dungeon. And then apparently there's a scene where Baby Kong is gonna find Kong's grave and like fire himself up to go in and rescue his girlfriend apparently. And then he climbs the Eiffel Tower and rescues the little girl. It's just bizarre. I mean, and speaking of bizarre, we have one of the most bizarre concepts. This is according to a book called Creating the Filmation Generation, and Dino De Laurentis apparently approached Lou Scheimer of Filmation Animation to develop an animated spin-off sequel to King Kong Lives starring the son of Kong. And there was this guy named Robert Lamb, who I think was also working for Filmation, and he came up with some pretty wild ideas involving Kid Kong to be able to change his size at will and travel to various different planets, as well as swim and breathe underwater. Not really breathe underwater, but swim underwater in a submarine made out of giant coconuts and bamboo called the Coco Nautilus. Needless to say, the film never got made, which is no surprise. Anyway, that's really all I got to say for part 3 of the Never Wers on the King Kong films. These were a lot of just wild and crazy ideas by Dino De Laurentis, and some other kind of crazy things as well, like a proposed King Kong spin-off or rip-off by Mario Bava. And I just wanted to share them with you, and I thought some of them were kind of fun. And, you know, definitely worth mentioning just because of how crazy they are. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for part 4. That'll be the final part. The main bulk of that will be all about Peter Jackson's original vision of King Kong. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.